Anyway,
Thank you, Mike.
you bet, see you all Thursday.
Yes.
Those that wanna come at 12, we can talk about the planning exercise for the Tossin Dam. And come at right at 1 o'clock, we'll have donuts,
Perfect.
maybe some veggies. See ya, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
You bet, you're welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good. Okay, so we've had, I had 5 off-site flu clinics this year. School, RY Timber, Pharmacy, State Bank, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield Caravan at the City Hall. And we had 2 on-site flu clinics at Public Health. We gave 501 vaccinations since September 1st to the November 30th. It's up last year from 403. So exactly the same time frame. So almost 100. We've had 32 new clients to the clinic, people that have never been there before. So I'm hoping that our advertising is helping, ensuring the public that we're open for business and owned by Broadwater County. I still am having people come in saying, you know, thought you were owned by the hospital, I thought you were closed, stuff like that. So I think the advertising is helping. I mean, 32 new clients is pretty good, I
Yeah.
think. The foot clinic is bringing in approximately $150 a month. I'm doing Silver Springs assisted living as well. So I have, I think they might have had a person that passed away, but alternating every month. So I do 6 one month and then 5 the next month, and then I have my one at the clinic, which has been booked since day one. I don't have too many signed up for Christmas because it's Christmas, so I think I have 3 on for the day after Christmas, I think, or anyway. Our cost for flu vaccines this year is $20,422, and that's all types of flu and pneumonia. I don't ever count the regular vaccines, although those are up. Our counts are up from where they usually are. So if we receive minimum payment, which we did minimum payment for Medicare does minimum payment, they only allow so much over the cost of the vaccine and the administration fee, and so we figured that we would bring in $37,932, and that's at a minimum payment. We have 174 clients that are non-Medicare, so, and they pay much higher, so that revenue could be thousands of dollars more than what we expect, which is good. I found an unclaimed credit from 2015 from one of our vendors a while back, and we were able to apply that to this year's flu vaccine cost. Also had a credit of $2,098 and $1,055 for return vaccines. So that was $4,334 in credits. I found out what happens with these credits with these vendors is they just sit there, and you have to tell them what you want to do with them. And so the one from 2015 obviously was way before any of us started, and it just sits in your. I look in the computer under our account, and it was just sitting there, and they're like, well, you have to tell us what you want to do with it. So I applied all those credits to, was able to apply all those credits to our flu vaccines this year. And we still have 1 credit for $245.75, and this is a thing that I joined called Flu Zone Partners program. And if you maintain a minimum of 95% of your reserve volume, they give you like a bonus. And so that bonus for last year was $245.75. So basically, we just use that credit, you know, to offset our flu vaccine. So, our minimum increase in revenue would be 21,844, and that's minimum. That's Medicare payment, and so I figured that we should have an increase of $4,000 from last season, just based on flu and pneumonia. So anyway, it's good for our budget. So I think last year I want to say that we had 17,555 or something like that, and this year it should be a minimum of 20,422. No, that's the cost of our vaccine. There's no increase. 17,000 plus a 4,334. So it'd be over 21,844. There it is. So kind of excited about that. That's good. Kelly is working very hard on her little room in the building. Her and her mom are there today. They were there most of the weekend. She's hoping to get started by January 1st. And they're back there arranging, and I'm hearing pounding and drilling and all kinds of stuff going on back there. So that's kind of exciting. Yeah. So she's gonna let me know when she thinks that she's, you know, ready to do some advertising and stuff. So that will be on her own, of course, but she kind of wants public health to be involved in that advertising. So kind of advertising for us and for her. So, but I told her her advertising would be on her own. So yeah. So I guess that's about it. That's all I can think of.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Busy. Of course, now is the time that I do my grants, and I'm kind of proud of this because I'm ready to submit, and they're not due till January 15th. So
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
pretty excited
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
I've done grants, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. We can't submit until after the 31st of December though, because that's the end of the quarter. But and they really are expecting a lot more. Next quarter is going to be really involved. So I really want to just get started on that as soon as I can, as soon as they put out the information for that. But they're making us redo all of our policies because Broadwater counties are just old. Their policies are look like they're done on a word processor, really, some of them, and they've just been reviewed and revised for years. So they change the names, you know, they might, the state might say you need to take this out and put this in or something like that, but they haven't actually been really looked over. And like the policy that I have due next quarter is 54 pages long.
Wow.
So that's emergency countermeasures for public health, which is probably one of my biggest policies, and so that's going to take some time. So I want to get started on that as soon as I can. So, but I think I have like 7 policies due next time. This time I have 4. So they really are expecting a lot more from us now, because a lot of the departments got cut, but they didn't pass them down. Like FEP didn't pass it down to me. WIC did, but FEP didn't. And instead of doing that, they just upped the requirements. So I take pictures and stuff of events like flu clinics and stuff like that and submit them to the state, which we've never done before. So, but they just want to know that you're doing it. You're doing signage, you know, you're advertising and, you know, getting results. So So last year I only did a couple of off-site clinics, so, having 5 was pretty phenomenal for our clinic, so.
Yeah,
Keep
that's,
working at it.
Nicely done,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
No, you are doing awesome,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll probably talk again, once Kelly says I'm ready to go, because I did the changes on the contract that, Corey suggested. There was only one that I didn't agree with him on. And so, but it was something we had talked about, so I didn't include that. But the other changes I did make that Corey suggested, so that's all ready to go. All we need to do is put a date to start the rent and then how much the rent is going to be. And then she has a temporary copy of, you know, what's all in there, so, she could look that over and stuff, and so that's all we have to do is fill out the date and how much we're gonna charge her and then get signatures, so.
Fantastic.
Anyway, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a good addition to the clinic, so.
Absolutely.
Yep. One mom brought her kid in for children in for flu shots, and of course they all wanted suckers. And I said, you can have a sucker, but you have to take a toothbrush.
Good for you.
And anyway, she said, it's hard to get the kids into the dentist and stuff like that. And I said, well, we're having a dental hygienist come to our clinic. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So kind of telling a few people, you know, now that it's getting more real, where she's getting her stuff all set up and everything, so. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All the mails went through, if anybody else has anything else to bring up in the meantime.
We have a couple of things. One is an email that was sent out. This would have been October 17th, and we got a follow-up email just this morning before our meeting. Basically, what we need to do is okay Corey's plan. This is the email, and what happened is Corey has been overpaid since he started. The law, and it's 210, I don't know if it's on here. There was a whole string of emails that you guys got from Brian Hopkins and Michelle Quigley. So Title 2, I think Chapter 10, speaks about military service. So if you are in the National Guard, you are paid with your normal job up to 120 hours for the year. So Corey has been paid in excess of that. And so what he did is he volunteered in this email to go ahead and pay it back. All we need to do is, I thought it was done, and Michelle said, no, you guys really should have a vote because it's an official action. So all we need to do is vote to follow Corey's recommendation in his email for his payback plan. And with that, I will go ahead and make that motion. And I don't think it's something we need to put on the agenda. I think it can be part of the consent agenda because we do have county management, and that's really what this is.
He's agreed to pay back what he was overpaid.
Yep, he not only agreed, but he put together a plan. He would like us to keep that money to put it into the litigation fund if we can. We talked to him about that last week, and I think it's something we can try and do. I don't know yet what the numbers look like, so I didn't make any promises, but I think if we set it as a goal, that should be accomplishable.
I would second that. we decided to go with Corey's payback plan, but basically what it is, any discussion. When did the email was sent, in October?
October 17th, there's a whole string of them. It was probably a good 2 weeks of emails back and forth, and again, one today. And then one from Michelle about 2 weeks ago. So there's been quite a few.
Any more discussion? Not in the middle of vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion passed.
So then the other thing is, I didn't bring a copy, but you guys got the newsletter from NACO. I saw it in the commissioner's email. On that is the New Year's resolutions. And what we do is we approve those the first meeting in January. There's 3 of them. I got them prepared for Franklin last year as the chair. So Franklin has a copy of those resolutions, Mike. They just need to be updated. Double check the hours. What they are is hours of operation. Some MCA requires particular hours, and then it's our way of communicating with the public that we are either abiding by those laws, and that we are abiding by those laws, and for those not dictated by laws, what their hours are. And then it's also setting a per diem rate for employees, and postings and meeting location and times, dates, that kind of thing. So if you need any help, just ask me, but I will let you guys go ahead and put together the details. Just because Franklin's the chair now, you'll be the chair next year, and it's part of the chair's duties. And if you just, I don't know if you've already downloaded and read the newsletter, but it's just right in the middle.
When did they send that out?
That's usually sent out the first week of the month, so it was at least 2 weeks ago. We had it for last week's meeting. We could have discussed it then. I wanted to make sure we discussed it today. So we've had it a good 2 weeks.
Okay, I've got something going on with my email because you sent emails. This one about Scott I never got from Michelle and from you. And then there was also another one in there about a meeting with Corey. That just showed up today and was sent Thursday. And I had that same issue with, I gotta call DES and find out what's going on, because something's going on with my emails that they're not coming through.
And they're not bouncing back, which is
And
proof that they
it
went.
skips days, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay, yeah, you need to get that worked out.
I'll call those guys and find out what's going on, because I don't know where they're going. And they aren't coming to any of my other stuff. My computer won't go on my phone.
Yeah, I would double check with the others
So
what's
I don't
going
know
on.
what's going on there. So, I guess what happened with the meeting with the union we were looking at on the 14th? Corey wasn't available. Was that ever scheduled after that?
I haven't seen any follow-up communication on that. So, nothing at this point.
And then at that training the other day, they were talking about personnel files.
Mhm.
When you guys did the policy handbook in 13, I believe it was? Or was
I think it was 15. It was just
So did-
recent, actually.
When you do that, do you have all the employees that gotta go back in and sign if they have that updated policy book?
Actually, what we did this year is we took attendance. So we offered 4 different trainings on the personnel policy handbook. Michelle came and did several, Debbie and Michelle did one as well. So what we had is everybody signed up for attendance, so they didn't have to sign it, they received it because attending the training sufficed. But any new employee now has to go through their department head and sign that they have received it, and department head signs that they provided the training.
And does that include our department heads do that with the updated book?
Oh, yes.
And whenever you change it, make sure that department head gets a deal, because they said that, they got she said that personnel file should be about that thick on everybody, and they got paperwork in there that's, looks like you gotta have a meeting every January for everybody.
We don't do it other than when there's a new book, so,
Just when there's a new book.
right, when we updated it, we did everybody, and then as new employees come on, then their department heads will do it with them one-on-one. Anything that we change, we do a memo. We should be having department head meetings. We haven't had one at all this year. Well, we had those more
We had like
casual
3 of them.
ones.
Yeah,
Right, and we stopped in March. It's November, it's December.
yeah.
So that's really something I'm hoping when you take over as chair that we can get going again as the department head meetings. They're important because, you heard it when we talked about the memo for the budget. And when he says, well, I don't read your memos, he's at least willing to admit it, but I would bet you he's speaking for almost everybody.
Yeah,
We need to start communicating better with our department heads, and the department head meetings, I think, are important for that. And then we can prove that there was a memo and verbal communication on various issues. I thought the structure was good. I had to just resume it.
I don't,
I do have something, and it's kind of related to what's coming up, but we had a meeting with Alan McCormick this week, who's the attorney that we've contracted with on land use. And that was a good meeting for what the commission should be doing. I know you were training Mike, but I attended it as the only commissioner, which frankly is just not okay. Again, you had an excuse. But one of the things that he said, and we need to take this, I think, earnestly, is when a subdivision comes before us, we've got the 7 things that we should be reviewing. We need to make sure it's documented that we are doing that. And when it comes time for the vote, we need to document that we're addressing these particular issues. It's been said in the past, well, if you're good with this, Nicole, I'm good with it, by another commissioner. That's absolutely not okay and will get us into legal jeopardy. I asked Alan why the commission isn't being deposed on a particular subdivision right now, and he said, because 100% of what you guys do is documented. If it's not documented, it doesn't matter if we depose you or not. You didn't do your job. He said it is all a matter of documentation and making sure that you go through the motions each and every subdivision in your meetings, and never ever say, well, as long as the planner says it's good with me. So I wish you both had been there to hear that. I'm hoping that there'll be some training on that at the next conference, because I think it's invaluable that we follow a proven practice and do it each and every time so that we don't miss it at some point and run into trouble because of that. Any questions on that? Okay. So, yeah, it was invaluable.
I'm next. Can I get situated here before this time? Is that okay?
Sure, anytime you're ready.
Oh, you're right, okay. Documents in order.
We need a ledge on the side of the
Yeah.
table. Yeah,
That does need to be something.
so you don't keep conking your knees.
Okay. Am I good to go, do you think?
I'm good.
Yeah.
So this is the final plat submittal application, whatever you want to say, final, they're seeking final plat approval, how about that? For the Mountain View Estate minor subdivision. I believe they've met all of their conditions, and I will provide you with evidence to prove that. So condition number 1. Plans for sewage treatment and water supply shall be submitted to the Montana Department of Environmental Quality for review and approval. The certificate of approval shall be filed with the final plat. Number 2 is also the same DEQ approval here. It states a stormwater drainage plan meeting the requirements of the county subdivision regulations shall be submitted to the county planning department for review and recommendation. So what you have coming around here is the DEQ approval for this one lot minor. I'm sorry, I should have given you a brief refresher on this. This is a one lot minor subdivision. They had an agricultural exemption in place. It's on Rouser Lane. The purpose of going through the subdivision process was to lift that agricultural exemption.
So it's not forming the lot at all, it's just lifting the egg exempt on the lot that was already formed.
Correct.
Thanks.
Correct. No fences or boundary lines are being moved. Number 3, prior to any development and/or soil disturbance, a weed management plan for the proposed development shall be submitted to the county weed district for review and approval. All specifications and requirements of an approved plan shall be met. You have the signed and approved weed management plan. Number 4, plans for the location and installation of individual mailboxes shall be reviewed and approved by the United States Postal Service prior to installation. And the letter from Postmaster Gail Boucher. Number 5, the applicant will be required to submit the final plat drawings in electronic format to Broadwater County in ArcGIS, AutoCAD, or MicroStation format. Additional materials may be requested by the county in electronic format to facilitate review of application materials. So you have the email with that information on it that was sent to me, and the information, the data is stored on my computer. Number 6, the fire plan. The applicant and the Fire Protection Authority having jurisdiction shall use their best efforts to draft the fire protection plan specifically for this subdivision in accordance with the Broadwater County subdivision regulations. The plan shall be equally acceptable to the FPAHJ, the applicant, and the county governing authority. The plan shall adequately address the fire risk analysis, all findings of fact, and appropriate mitigation measures. In the event the parties are unable to come to agreement by the final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash in lieu fee for water supply as may be defined in the Broadwater County subdivision regulations in effect at the time of submittal.
So are they paying the 500?
That was not a request or a requirement according to this letter from Fire Chief Ed Schindel.
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
No,
mentioned
there's a fire mitigation plan, and that's what he agreed to. And as we discussed before, I'm just gonna say it again for the record, this fee is not automatically assessed. This is, you know, per this condition, if the parties are unable to come to agreement by the final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash in lieu fee for water supply. However, there is an agreement in place, it's signed by Fire Chief Ed Schindel. I'm certainly not in a position to overrule or challenge what he agrees to. So unless that plan specifically and explicitly states that they are to pay the per lot cash in lieu fee, I don't require that. Just as if it doesn't say that a 20,000 gallon underground water storage tank isn't required. I am not in a position to require that or to recommend that you require that. Move on to condition number 8. The book and page reference to the restrictive covenant filed with the county clerk and recorder shall be indicated on the face of the final plat. In addition, restrictive covenants, revocable or alterable, only with the consent of the Board of County Commissioners, shall be placed upon the property and shall provide for the following. Do you want me to read each one of these?
I don't.
Okay. I can verify that they are there. I did read through and verified that A through N read explicitly as they do here in that document, which are very similar to every commission-required covenant that we place on a subdivision. Well, identical, with the exception of a few changes for each to fit each subdivision specifically, I should say.
I hate to go back, but I am
No.
concerned about a non-equitable assessing of the fire fee. If there's going to be a fire fee, you assess it on everyone. If there's not a fire fee, then you assess it on no one. It just seems to me that that would be one of those that's challengeable.
I agree, and I know we've had this discussion here. Every time a fire plan comes through like that with nothing, a lot of times, I can't specifically say which one, but I know that you've seen them, I know I've seen them, the fire plan, the requirements, and Fire Chief Schindel writes in there nothing. So I do nothing. I mean, I want that to be very clear to you that I don't feel I have the liberty to require the money if the fire chief is not explicitly stating that he wants the money. Again, just the same as if they want an underground tank, a live well. They have their own set of regulations, fire regulations. I certainly wouldn't expect him to come in and challenge my subdivision regulations or what I would put in place for a subdivision. So I show him that same respect, I suppose, as a way of looking at it, that if he says he wants nothing, or if he says this is acceptable, then that's what I go with.
Sure. No, I understand that from your perspective.
And for you
Yeah.
folks to have to make that determination, I'm sorry, I don't have anything else to lend to that. But I do agree that it does need to be fair and equitable for every subdivision, because some of them do have to pay, and because it's $1,000 per lot is the current cash in lieu fee. It's $1,000, so some of them do have to pay that, some of them have to put in, as we saw in the, oh, my brain, what's the one on the highway, Eldo's
Yeah,
subdivision.
Lake Vista.
Lake Vista?
3 or 4.
They had to put up $10,000 worth of water storage. So, you know, and granted, that was 5 lots, this is 1 lot, however, I'm not sure what the answer is.
So Mike, you were on the fire district board when those regulations were adopted. What's your thinking on this? What was the intent at the time? What do you think about this issue now?
Well, I think it's, I would always was advocating $1,000 here regardless of if it's 1 or if it's 5. Because it doesn't matter, if it's 1 lot or it's 5 lots, it's still 5 separate lots. We should be treated the same as 1 separate lot. I mean, just because this person has 1 lot out here, they still have an impact on that fire district.
Right.
Because it's 1 additional, because, and now, you know, we just went through this family land transfer with the people on the Jack Smith place. There's no charge there, and there's 5 more houses, now you've got 5 more residents with whatever outbuildings and whatever people occupying that space, why are they not being charged for that also?
Because it's
Family
not a
land transfer,
subdivision.
you can't charge, can you, or can you?
No, because this fire regulations do not apply to a family land transfer or any of the COSs that come across your desk that are not a subdivision. Those fire regulations only apply to subdivisions. And so a family land transfer, even though it looks like a subdivision, it's not a subdivision.
Who came up with that?
Legislatures.
That's as stupid as us not charging a lot for a fee per lot.
You know, sometimes there's government and then there's common sense, and they sometimes don't
I mean,
meet up.
even
And, you know,
just because it's a family doesn't mean that
Mhm.
it doesn't impact everything.
correct. But then it would be called an impact fee, which we cannot charge. So that's why, because it's illegal. Well, you go ahead and you can charge whatever you want, but I'm certainly not going to be there to back you
No,
up in
and
court.
I don't understand why the fire department wouldn't be charging that.
I
because
agree.
To me, it's a loss of revenue and a loss
Mhm.
for them for the ability to increase their abilities.
Absolutely, yes. I know that they could always use the revenue. And I know every one of us appreciate the work that those volunteers do and that the fire department does. This is literally leaving free money on the table.
I just think it's important to remember that the fire department does create their own requirements. And the $1,000 fee is an in lieu fee. There's the fire department right now does not have a requirement that every subdivision lot pays $1,000. The requirement of the fire department is that you make a plan. The $1,000 only comes into play if they can't make a plan. Now, sometimes the plan includes the $1,000 and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's where the county is protected and all, because it's specifically a fee in lieu of a plan, that it's required, I guess.
Thank you.
So it's not, yeah, it's not in there that every lot pays $1,000.
But they do have the ability to include it in their fire
Right.
plan, should they wish to. But and I think that that's where you were getting back to. It's not equitable because it's not the same for every development. Some developments do have to pay. Some developments it is a requirement that they pay the $1,000 per lot, and some it's not. So how do they use discretion? The fire board or the fire department, I guess it would be the board. I don't know.
I know it took years to come to that agreement.
A long time.
We don't know that
Mhm.
we want to disturb that.
Mm-hmm.
True. Does every subdivision come before the trustees of the fire district, Mike, or is it solely up to, just one individual?
Normally Ed brings them up, like in his monthly report, if there is a subdivision activity going on. But they do, normally everything's just left up to Ed. And there's usually not a discussion on it, other than if there's some kind of an access or something, like an access issue, they'll have discussions on that. But, so, what happens if developer A and developer B, one gets charged and one doesn't? What if the one that doesn't get charged comes, can he go back on the county, or does he go back on the fire board? who do they go to there? If they decide, you know, that you're charging me 1,000, but you're not charging him, so I want my 1,000 back, or you need to charge him. In the legal world, where does that go to? Does that come back to the county because the fire board's
I would say
That
no.
probably goes to that, if an agreement is made, because the $1,000 option doesn't come up unless you don't come to an agreement.
Or unless it's
And I
included as part
haven't
of the
seen it
agreement.
actually in writing, but that's
Mhm.
what I'm hearing from
Yep.
both of you.
And, or if it's explicitly part of that agreement. But yeah, I would say that the fire department is their own legal entity. They are elected officials, the fire board, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say department. They are elected officials, and these are fire regulations. These are Broadwater County fire regulations. We went through, after years and years of discussions, and finally removed the fire regulations from the subdivision regulations because the fire board did not appreciate the county using discretion and, for lack of a better word, meddling in their regulations. So we said, okay, fine, we will write you your own regulations. We sat in that room for umpteen hours and with Three Forks Rural Fire Board, Broadwater County Rural Fire Board, planning board member and myself, and worked through all of this to create fire regulations so that Broadwater County Rural Fire District has their own set of regulations that I do not monitor. I have a copy of them, and that's literally, like, that's the most of my involvement with them. I don't have to ensure that anyone follows them. They actually did the county a favor, I believe, by pulling it from the regulations, because now the onus and the responsibility is not on you folks to make sure that my department essentially is following the fire regulations. They are completely their own standalone document that was adopted by resolution. So to answer your question, I would feel very strongly that it would not come back to you.
One thing that Susan Swinley has said is, first of all, anyone can sue at any time for any reason. And a good lawyer is gonna look for all the deep pockets. So it could very well be that a good lawyer looks at not only the rural fire district, but also the county as having deep pockets. But I agree with Nicole, I think the reason we did it was so that everyone would play nice in the sandbox, but also for protection of the county. But that is an issue, and I hope we don't have to have somebody bring it forward harshly to be addressed.
I would think if you feel strongly about it, a conversation between the commission and the fire board would be the place to go, not here.
I agree.
On one side.
Yeah, no, I agree, I don't think we can overturn their decision, nor would I want to start that process or that precedent. But I certainly think that it's a slippery slope I don't think that anybody should be on. So, I didn't mean to stop us.
No, that's okay. And I just, I just want to give you just a brief explanation of why, another explanation, I guess, of why that came out. Because there was a period of time there where the fire board was requesting more than what the current commission felt was prudent and reasonable for development. And that's where the rub kind of started. Because the fire board would say, well, you know, we really want a 20,000 gallon underground storage tank with a live well, power to it. We want that in the subdivision at a cost of, I think we figured for 20,000 gallons in that situation, it was about $15,000. And not you folks, because you weren't at this table at the time, but the commission at the time said, you know, we feel that that's a bit much. That's a lot for this small of a development, because, you know, we're talking 5 to 10 lots. And so this board then overturned what the fire board had said in that instance. And that's where we started down that path of, there was some animosity, I should say, between the commissioners and the fire board, because the fire board did not feel that their wishes were being respected, and the commission felt that the fire board was being overzealous in their requirements. And so that's how this language came to be, that if at the time, say a developer says, okay, you want this, but I'm willing to give you this, then this commission has the ability to request the cash and lieu fee for water supply, if they can't come to an agreement. And so that's a bit of why those regulations were then taken out of the subdivision regulations too, and why that sentence was added to that condition. So I feel it would be a similar thing, you know. So say in this instance you feel the fire board is being too gracious and not taking that $1,000. do you overturn what the fire board says? Granted, it would be for the benefit of the fire board, but it's the same thing.
Right.
They have their own regulations, they signed off on the plan. Is it your duty or responsibility to say, we don't agree with that? It's a respect thing, I suppose. So, anyway.
Now,
Moving on, are we good?
yes.
Okay. 9A, prior to filing the final plat, the following improvements shall be installed or otherwise guaranteed. A, utilities abutting and available to each lot. B, I have nothing else for you for that, but it's, B is any necessary improvements required by the stormwater drainage plan or weed management plan, but there were no additional requirements required, so. Ten A, provide proof that, I'm sorry, that's 10B. It does say taxes are paid on there, but here's also a tax receipt. So 10A, provide proof that all taxes and special assessments assessed and levied on the property are paid for the current tax year, including any past delinquencies. And then 10B is provide documentation showing that the applicant is the lawful owner of the property with the apparent authority to subdivide the same, showing the names of lien holders or claimants of record, and the written consent to the subdivision by the owners of the land, if other than the applicant, and any lien holders or claimants of record against the land. So that shows that their taxes have been paid for the current tax year, which is 2017, and that they are the lawful owners of the property. And that is it for my list of conditions.
I don't see that we had anything additional that we were asking for.
Refresh me, was that in the first one, that time where it tells about the drainage ditches, possible flood hazard, was that in the original one? Or was that added since then?
What do you mean?
It just says here.
What document are you looking at?
And C,
What's the
the developer and any future owners of this lot shall be made aware that the drainage / ditch and a possible flood hazard.
Is that, are that the covenants that you're reading?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that was added by this commission, just to
After
put
the-
that out there after the discussion, because there was some
Right,
discussion
that's
with neighboring farmers flood irrigating. And so this was the best way to get that information into any future owners of the property, into their hands, because covenants, legally, the realtor should be providing covenants, or whomever, even if they're not using a realtor, I should say, the seller is required to provide covenants to the buyer. So that way, it cannot be amended either, because there are other covenants that you are not privy to any amendments. Making it a commission-required covenant, if indeed someone wanted to remove it, it would have to come before this board and you would have to vote. So yes, that's why that's in there. To protect any future owners, not just these folks, but anybody from forever and ever, that covenant
That they're aware
will
of.
always be in there. And it's basically just an awareness, because we can talk about it at this table, but in 20 years, if there's a different owner living out there, how would they ever know what happened in a commission meeting on December 11th, 2017? Unless they had some free time and wanted to go read some minutes or watch a video.
So the effects on land use are minimal, shall be non-existent. Public health and safeties, no effect. That is included, the water, flood irrigating is included, as Franklin just read. There is the 60-foot easement. No, I think they've covered everything. And this is just to lift and make exempt, not creating any boundaries. I would move we grant final approval to Mountain View Estate subdivision.
Then move to second, grant the final approval of Mountain View Estates. Any more discussion? No more discussion, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
brought 2 pens because sometimes they don't work, but do the same thing. So if you would just sign 4 times, please. And I'm gonna wait until you're recorded.
And you can just okay with the filing fees, since they're in Virginia, I'll just send them an invoice.
Okay, so I'll just charge it on to you then.
That'd be great.
All right.
And then I'll just come up with tomorrow or something, get a receipt of how much, or let's see how much it was.
Sure, okay.
I hope that this is a nice little addition to your neighborhood out there, Ann.
Hope it works out for them.
Me too. I've spoken with them on the phone, just the gentleman, super friendly.
They're young, aren't they one of our 30s?
No,
40s?
they're older folks.
Oh.
They're coming, I don't wanna say following the Amish, but you know, they're gonna put an Amish country store there on the
Nice.
parcel. Yeah, they hope to eventually have some food items in there. Obviously, they'll have to work with Julian with the state, but for now, it's just dry goods. So we kinda need to have
Absolutely.
They're related to the families that are already here.
Oh, okay.
Like the Millers that you brought the COF
Yeah.
for today, yeah.
Dan
Oh.
Weaver, is, I don't know, one of the head friends. And Katie Linger, the wife here, is their brother and sister.
Oh, okay, all right. That's kind of cool that we have that, I think.
Uh-huh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's neat, it's a big family and
Yeah.
awful nice people to work with and just.
Is this okay? We get it to you?
Yeah, just, yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Frankie.
They've been helping a gentleman build his house and they show up with cookies. Well, he
Yeah.
goes and picks them up and takes them out. And when he picks them up, they have cookies for him. It's like, when does that ever happen? Yeah. And then they are just really getting along great and very hard workers.
Can you come see me before you leave the building? Please. I just need to know if you want to stay on. All right, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
I grabbed them. Oh, Julie. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, Anna.
John, did you have a comment or something?
Actually, I can fill in a blank on that if you guys want. I put a letter in our mailbox earlier this week. We do have our weed and mosquito coordinator has resigned. And so what we're gonna need to do is refill that position. And we just need to agree as a commission to go ahead and get that started. We have the job description updated. We're gonna be looking at a starting salary of 80 to 85% of median from the salary resolution. And an interview panel made up of 2 members of the weed district, the mosquito board chairman, if you're willing, a commissioner and extension agent, and our HR administrator. So are you guys good to proceed with that? This is our planning time, so we need to get on this and not waste any time so that we can make sure we're ready to go when the season's hit, the learning curve and acclimation curve.
Do we have any idea, are we gonna, how hard is it gonna be to fill the combined position?
I guess I don't. It sounds like that's a common practice across the state is to have the combined positions. I don't know if you've done any research or not. I guess what's being told to me, that was a kind of a concern of the weed board is whether or not we would be able to keep the combined position. But I don't know what you're going to get into if you separate them again. And through the job description, it does say that they just have to have their licensing. I don't know if Mosquito has its own job description. Just that they're able to possess and acquire the license within 6 months of hire. Weed board, I think we would just, same thing there. If they don't have the license, they can still apply and we'll hire if we find the right candidate. And same thing with Mosquito, if they've got the 6 months to get their license and get the ball rolling. But I don't know how you can split the positions now and still keep your payroll applicable and
I don't
find
see any
qualified.
reason to skip based on the amount of work saved for mosquitoes. Definitely not a year-long position. Not sure where Weeds would think as far as a full-time position, but I think between both mosquito and weeds, I think there's a definite need for a full-time coordinator.
Yeah, weed board agrees with that. I mean, I don't think we can split them down, and if you have to have 2 people to do 2 different jobs, I think we're good staying together that way.
I think where the success would lie is a strong coordinator and then the employees of said coordinator having that umbrella for the applicator license, all the permitting and all that, and then having the strong temporary summertime employees.
And by those emails that we got from this, the weed person has to be licensed when they get on board.
No, the job description says that they have the 6 months. They just have to be able to possess and maintain the license, but it gives them the 6 months leeway to do that.
So
I think that opens us up to be able to hire. I mean, if we had it
yeah.
tighter than that, then I don't think you're gonna get anybody to apply because it takes that, especially college graduates. And I mean, if they don't have the job, they're not gonna spend the time and energy to have those licenses, so.
So it says it must be able to require, possess, maintain a Montana pesticide dealers and regulatory pesticide applicator license, mosquito abatement license, and Montana noxious weed seed free forage inspector's license within 6 months of employment and maintain continuing education during employment. So, as
It's
Commissioner.
not about just contracting it out.
You're still gonna have to have a coordinator, and I think, I'm opposed to it.
As to,
Easy answer is we're opposed to it. I think mosquito board's opposed
Mosquitoes
to it.
opposed to contracting.
All the weed board's opposed to it. And as commission, you're still gonna have to pay somebody to be a coordinator, and you're gonna have to have 2 separate coordinators. And I don't think you're not gonna benefit anything out of it.
If I may, I did, obviously Tracy Schilling and Tony Smith of Forest Service, the weed range folks over there. Scott, as a partner, Scott told them of his resignation. And they did, they asked me to bring this letter in. Joe, you're the head, right? And it kind of gives a rundown of
Thank you.
what a weed coordinator entails as far as Forest Service interaction. And their official view is a definite standalone weed coordinator / mosquito, not any contractors. No.
and I don't believe there's any counties that contract everything out. Is that,
There are
What's it
counties
now?
that have contractors, but they also have a coordinator so that there's supervision of that contractor. And the only reason that those counties have gone that route is they couldn't find employees to do the seasonal spraying. We had Chris and Riley last year. They couldn't find that, so they were forced to spend the much higher cost to have a full-time coordinator, or a contractor. They still had coordinators.
So in the scenario of contracting everything, contract oversight, solicitation, administration, payment would fall to you 3. Now,
I will tell you from experience, you don't wanna take that on.
so, and then, say I buy 10 acres somewhere, and I want the county's help on getting it sprayed, who am I gonna talk to? I'm gonna be calling you, Mr. Delger. You know?
Right. I mean,